2025 is here already, and I thought it'd be a good idea to talk about some of the games I'm looking forward to that are happening in 2025. I do foresee this is going to be quite a big year of gaming, and we don't have any proper concrete evidence for a lot of the things that we assume are going to happen in 2025, so it'd be nice to talk about them as well. I've also got a couple of wishes here that I would like to see happen in 2025 that maybe no one else will care about, but I personally would love to see these things happen. First up for me is the Switch 2. It's about time, and it has been speculated for quite some time that the Switch 2 is definitely happening this year. I feel like it could honestly get announced like any week now, any day, just round the corner. Nintendo are going to announce a Nintendo Direct and tell us the lowdown on what is going on. I think it has to happen. Like, we need something new from Nintendo this year, an upgraded Switch, and that is also like one of the latest rumors, is that it is just going to be like an upgraded version of the Switch, which I don't think is like a terrible idea. I also don't hate the name of the Switch 2 if that is actually what they go with. It kind of makes sense, but I don't hate the idea of it being an upgraded Switch because I do want like better performance from Switch games as a whole. If they can look better and feel better on Switch 2 as opposed to Switch 1, I feel like that'll be fine for me. But I do feel like the Switch 2 will need standalone titles to exist alongside the original Switch. You have to give people a proper reason to actually want to buy the Switch 2 over the Switch 1, and I think it will need standalone titles. I don't think it'll be like, if you remember, the 3DS came out with a new 3DS that had specific titles that came out on that. I remember it had Xenoblade Chronicles 3D that came out on the 3DS. And it didn't really take off that well, so they kind of like backtracked on that idea. But I do feel like something like that has to happen for the Switch 2 this year. And I feel like more people will be open to it because it's a console over just a handheld. I've made it no secret on this channel that I was definitely disappointed in Tears of the Kingdom for the original Switch that came out. It took almost 6 years to make that game, and it's always a long wait for another Zelda game, and I've been a Zelda fan for a long time, but I did feel like Tears of the Kingdom, for myself personally, was an underwhelming Zelda game as opposed to Breath of the Wild that came out before it, just a bit too similar for me and not different enough. Stuff was promised in the game that wasn't delivered on. And I feel like for the Switch 2 day one, I want like the proper version of Tears of the Kingdom. Now, what do I mean by that? I feel like I hope that they have been working on a DLC for Tears of the Kingdom. I just find it completely strange that there's been no DLC announced for Tears of the Kingdom at all. Part of me feels like they're kind of saving it for Switch 2, because I firmly believe maybe Tears of the Kingdom should have been a Switch 2 game rather than a Switch 1 game, and it could have realised its full potential. I want to play it with upgraded resolution, upgraded FPS, 60 FPS, no frame drops, please. And yes, I want like an upgraded story in the form of DLC, and I do feel like that is likely to happen. If it doesn't happen, so be it, but I kind of hope it does happen, and it is like a little bit of a wish that I want for the Switch 2. The only other wish I want for Switch 2, which I don't know if it's going to happen, but it's a pretty good guess to make, I think we definitely need a 3D Mario. I guarantee everybody thinks the same as me. But what do people want for that 3D Mario? I've been saying for a long time that I really think they should make a Super Mario Galaxy 3. I think Galaxy is honestly could be the best 3D Mario game that they ever made, and alongside Super Mario Galaxy 2, but I do give the edge out to the first game because I played them both lately again, and I do think the first one kind of edges it out over 2, even though 2 is really good. But I think it's time they make a third game in some series that they have, and I think they should make a Super Mario Galaxy 3. What is the likelihood of that happening? I don't know, but I do feel like they will revisit the Galaxy universe in Mario one day, and I feel like what better time than to do it now for the next 3D Mario. Super Mario Galaxy 3, you heard it here, the Tasty channel has called it, but it's more than likely not happening. But it's a good guess, man, and it would be exciting for a lot of people to play a new Galaxy game. I'm sure the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake is coming out this year, Metal Gear Solid Delta. I foresee we might see it by the summertime. I don't know if we will see it by March, but I'm kind of leaning towards the summertime it coming out. I did make a video on this channel that was a wee bit more negative towards Metal Gear Solid 3 Delta, just because I was a little bit disappointed in the fact that the game is just going to be a complete facelift in terms of how they're doing this remake. It's not really got anything new added to the game. It's only the same game with just straight up better graphics. And don't get me wrong, I think the graphics look amazing, you know, but I do feel like there's a little bit of lost potential for the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake, because I do feel, let's just say hypothetically, Hideo Kojima came back and he was like going to do the remake. I don't think that's exactly how he would have done it. I think there would have been a little bit more ambition towards this remake, but I am hopeful that they will give us some surprises in the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake. It won't just be a straight up facelift. At least that's one of my wishes for the game, is that there's actually going to be some surprises there for the players. I would like people to actually chime in here and tell me what you think about this remake. Everywhere I go, it's kind of like 50-50. Some people are looking forward to it because the graphics look amazing. Other people not so much, like myself, just because it is a straight up graphical overhaul. But I am hopeful that there will be some lovely surprises in there for us MGS fans returning to the franchise, you know. One of my big, huge gaming wishes for 2025 is that Capcom actually announced Marvel vs. Capcom 4. Maybe some people will feel like that's a bit of an out there take that Marvel vs. Capcom 4 could get announced this year, but I don't think it's completely out there. They did start selling Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and all those Marvel games in a collection a little while ago. So that means that Disney are completely okay with Capcom selling the Marvel vs. Capcom license, you know, so obviously Capcom have it in order to sell these collections to people once again, and they've got these games out there. They're really good ports for people to play with rollback netcode, which is like the best netcode you can get for fighting games at the moment, and it just makes too much sense that they have a Marvel vs. Capcom 4 coming later down the line. Like, what was the point in doing all this if it's not like leading up to something at least? And Disney are more on the side of the X-Men nowadays and stuff, what with the fact that they bought Fox and they own all the mutants, so they kind of want to see people like Cyclops and Wolverine come back, and one way to do that is the Marvel vs. Capcom franchise. So that is genuinely why I believe that Marvel vs. Capcom 4 will get announced at some point in the future. I'm hoping it's this year. Maybe it'll be next year, you never know, but I just think it's too obvious that it has to happen at this point. Let me know what you think about that. It's hard to believe that the last game that Bluepoint actually made was Demon's Souls on the PS5, the remake, which a lot of people did enjoy. I myself enjoyed it quite a lot, and I do think it stands alongside the original game and doesn't completely overwrite it, which I think was like the best way for them to go about it. You know, that's the good thing about Souls games, is you can play like so many of them in a row and they kind of feel a little bit different. And I think the same goes for the remake, which is why I think it was a pretty good remake. Some people say the art style got ruined in the newer game versus the older game, but that doesn't really matter because we've still got the older game to play, which I think is the best thing. If it completely like overrid it, then, you know, you might not want to even play the old game again. I don't think remakes should completely overwrite the originals, and I personally don't feel like anyone has yet. But I really want to see what Bluepoint are making next. We have absolutely no idea what they're making. There's been rumors that they were doing things like making their own IP, and they were like remastering Bloodborne or remaking Bloodborne. Like, who knows what it is? There's so many like little whispers. There was even rumors that they were remaking Castlevania Symphony of the Night in the form of a Souls-like, because they had just came off Demon's Souls. But the reality is we have absolutely no concrete evidence what Bluepoint have been doing for the past few years. And I hope we find out this year pretty soon what they've been up to. I personally hope that they have been remastering Bloodborne, because I think that would be another good game to get out there for people to play. Would it feel like a bit of a waste if it took so long, if it's just a remaster of Bloodborne? Maybe in a lot of people's eyes it would be. So I hope they've also been working on a new IP alongside it. Maybe that's what's been taking so long. Nonetheless, I hope we find out this year. One of my last hopes for 2025 is that it's another Capcom one here, actually. I hope Capcom are doing another Clock Tower game. Capcom have just been sitting on this IP for years, and I think the fact that they announced a new Onimusha and a new Okami just at the Game Awards there in 2024, I think that gives us a lot more hope that there is a possibility of their older IPs coming back. Clock Tower is a pretty great franchise, and I think it would suit alongside the survival horror genre for Capcom, right next to Resident Evil, and give them like another big IP that they can release new games for. I personally would love it to be Clock Tower. Capcom obviously have so many IPs as well, like Dino Crisis, you could talk about that, but I do think there's also going to be another Dino Crisis down the line. I do have a bunch more hopes for 2025 and some games to look forward to. Obviously, there is a bunch of confirmed games for 2025 to talk about, but I kind of wanted to speculate about some of the things that's not happened yet that might have a possibility of happening. And I would love to hear from you guys. Do you guys have any actual gaming wishes for 2025 that have not been announced yet? Honestly, I think round the corner is when the Switch 2 is coming. What kind of games are you looking forward to on that machine that have a possibility of happening? Let me know, and I'll catch you in the next one.